Last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. Our top story this week. In Texas, this sick of a foster father is arrested and charged with capital murder after taking an 11-month-old baby out of her crib and stomping on her. The baby's grandmother thinks the child's death could have been prevented if the CPS agents had listened to the abuse concerns raised by the family. And as the mother speaks out with similar allegations against the agency, the child protective industry defends themselves by saying that the mother could have done more to keep the kid out of foster care by getting off of drugs, even though the grandmother was the one whose custody the kid was snatched from last June. The number of kids in the United States foster care system drops for the sixth straight year, down to 400,000 compared to more than 520,000 a decade ago. This except, of course, in Arizona, which is seeing a record number of foster kids these days, which they're blaming on heavy workloads for CPS agents and judges leaving a backlog of child welfare cases behind as they transfer to other divisions of the court every 2 years. And of course in Oklahoma, where the number of kids in foster care is on the rise as well. In California, 90 San Diego foster kids get to spend 4 whole days together at a summer camp with the siblings they've been separated from in the foster care system. A California state senator is trying to pass a bill that would force the state to recognize that a kid can have more than 2 legal parents. In Illinois, foster kids whose parents are incarcerated are going to have an easier time visiting through a new video visitation program in Madison County Jail. And Mississippi ranks nearer at the bottom in every major category assessed by the annual Kids Count survey, officially making them the worst state in the USA in terms of the welfare of children. Catholic bishops in the United States are supporting a new law that would reunite immigrant families when the parents have been deported. In New York, a group of foster parents are speaking out, saying that injustices in the state's foster care programs have gone unnoticed for too long. In Pennsylvania, several child welfare agencies are seeking a cut of the $60 million fine imposed upon Penn State University thanks to the Jerry Sandusky sex abuse cover-up. And in Washington, a state audit found that 28 sex offenders had lived in state-regulated or subsidized child care or foster care homes between 2002 and 2012. An annual survey from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health finds that youth in therapeutic foster care are more likely to use alcohol and illicit drugs. In Wisconsin, a group of social workers is making a push to keep more kids in their homes rather than placing them in foster care. And in Utah, a new law is being considered that would enforce open adoption arrangements in cases where the desperate to adopt promise the birth parents everything, then pull the rug out from under them when the adoption is finalized. In Russia this week, they're freaking out over the child abuse arrest of 2 adoptive parents of a Russian-born child in Bristol, Virginia, and a couple of foster parents from Wisconsin who were charged with severe mistreatment of their adopted children, most of whom were Russian-born. And now the Russian government is tightening its adoption rules for U.S. citizens after now 19 Russian kids have died in American homes over the last decade. In Canada, a mother is calling for changes to the Saskatchewan foster care system after her 13-month-old son was brutally beaten while in a foster home. And the head of a group representing foster families in the province says that all homes that take in children should disclose everything about their situation, including details on who else is in the home. In Australia this week, foster care agencies are being forced to turn kids away as there just aren't enough beds for all of the kids they've been snatching. An Australian CPS agent ignored the deplorable conditions of a home and failed to raise the alarm regarding children who are starved and tortured. And Australian parents who have obese children are now going to be facing the fat police as doctors are being required to rat them out to the child protective industry. In England, a foster mother is banned from having unsupervised contact with children after admitting to having sexual affairs with 2 teenage boys. 62 British MPs are calling for an apology to the parents who were separated from their children by forced adoption in the UK during the 50s, 60s, and 70s. A real mother is telling her story after getting her kid back from British social workers who went all the way to France to snatch her newborn. A damning Ofsted report is claiming that British social workers are too slow to snatch children into care, and British family rights activists need to get it into gear as the overall public opinion of British social workers improves. In entertainment news this week, Michael Jackson's siblings, Janet, Jermaine, and Randy, are banned from visiting his mother's home or the kids. But Janet Jackson is denying claims that she slapped her niece Paris or that she called her a spoiled little bitch. John Gosling says that he's broke and has to choose between paying rent and child support, but Kate says that he's full of crap because he hasn't had to pay child support since April. The ex-wife of Usher says that the public sympathy coming out of the mouth of the singer in regards to her son who died in a jet ski accident a couple weeks ago is all bullshit. And the judge says that Usher's stepson's death will not delay their bitter custody battle. In Michigan, a fourth-grade teacher and foster parent gets busted with child porn on his computer. In Washington, a social worker who once licensed foster care homes pleads guilty to 2 federal counts of distribution of child porn. In North Carolina, a foster father is convicted of 14 sex crimes against an 11-year-old girl. And in Oklahoma, a Fort Small soldier who was also a foster parent was convicted and ordered to serve 28 years in jail for having sex with a foster child. In Ohio, a CPS supervisor is suspended for 2 weeks without pay for not doing anything about a mother whose 7 kids were found living in a filthy home. In Louisiana, a man is indicted for first-degree murder in the death of his 3-year-old foster daughter. In Maryland, a prosecutor says that the 12-year-old boy who beat a 2-year-old foster child to death didn't want her in the house. And in Georgia, a teenager starves to death in spite of the state's involvement. In Washington, a report says the CPS agents could have done more, for example, consulting with police regarding the known violent past of Josh Powell, who blew himself and his kids up during what was supposed to be a supervised visit at his home. And finally, tonight, in Georgia, there's a battle going on between the adoptive brother of the biological mother and the foster parents who want to adopt a set of twins and keep them away from their biological brother. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.